I see mixed reactions out there in terms of how people are responding to what they are witnessing out there about the new fuel price regime. We're joined this morning by Onuoha Nnachi, who is an engineer. He's also the director, Interaccess Energy Services. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you.
Well, the debate is still very much out there. First and foremost, you've spoken with respect to this previously about how we need to do this, at least take this kind of step. But is this the exact same step you had advocated?
In a very clear and straightforward answer is no. Capital N-O. Because we are calling for deregulation, not liberalization of the market.
So what do you call this?
This is liberalization. It's a very clear liberalization.
What's the difference between it?
The aspect of liberalization falls down on the point of where you now says everyone that has the capability to import product can import and sell, so you're not holding the market. So you have opened up the market, you have liberalized the market, and it is open, which is a subset of the regulation. And when you move into proper deregulations, it goes into the pricing mechanism. How you hold it, is it still within your control? Are there anything hindering it or otherwise? But as it is now, you can see that the pricing is still being edged by NNPC through PPPRA. And I really have to just question why it is. There's only one reason you can say why they may decide to edge it, to make sure that the price does not hit the roof just on the announcement. But when we compare the benefit of that and the benefit of not edging it, what you stand to see. And when you look at the price template, when Kechukwu made this announcement and read it out, some of us were waiting to see the PPPRO pricing template. And eventually I got that pricing template. I said, there's nothing new about it. Because if you go through the pricing template that determines this range of 135 to 145, there are so many things that are subject to questions. And you ask, because when you talk about other regulations, those pricing mechanisms are supposed to be out. You don't have to contain them again. I don't see the reason why, if I say I have liberalized the market, I have deregulated the market, and I still pay for your financings. Because if you look at the pricing mechanism, you will begin to see some numbers. That's how they are. I think I shared it across. If you look at that, you see the financing has a portion of it. How many people that gets into the business of importation of any product that you pay for their storage of their goods? But here we'll pay for storage. Here we'll pay for deliverance. Here we'll pay for retailer. There are so many things and which are supposed to be determined by market forces, clearly. And then we can now say we are talking about proper the regulation of the downstream. So I think as we progress in the discussions, we'll throw more light on some key issues.
I remember we did ask him as well, the minister, yesterday, whether this was deregulation or are they continuing with the price modulation. But he didn't want to be drawn into all of those semantics. He just said, look, eventually that's where they're headed, to ensure that market forces determine all of this. But they needed to ensure that the prices don't hit the roof. And perhaps all of this, if I could deduce or infer from what he said, may be part of the strategies that are being put in place to ensure that those prices don't hit the roof. But if we were to allow the prices just full deregulation as you advocate, are we going to be able to handle it?
Yeah, comfortably.
Because if at 145, there's a complaint already.
Okay, now, you may say at 145 there's a complaint. It's a natural complaint. You can't run away from it. You cannot in any way run away from it. Now, the other point that becomes so very clear is the timing of the announcements. You're just coming out from scarcity, which is still lingering. So what is the supply mechanism in place to make sure you have supply surplus? If you have put a mechanism that ensures that you have supply surplus, and you do full deregulations because of the forces of demand and supply, and you have supply surplus, that price will never hit anywhere. But get the point that I'm saying is, when you look at the mechanism, look at our charts. You see the cost element and you see distribution element. So if you look at the distribution element, you're still seeing transporters allowance at 3.36. You're still seeing dealers at 2.36. You're still seeing bridging all over the world. This term bridging has been eliminated. It doesn't exist any longer. You don't expect the value that somebody that is close to the refineries or close to the importation points to buy PMS as someone that is far away. Because the price you buy tomato in Benin is not the same price you buy tomato in Jos. We've not bridged our tomato supplies.
Isn't that why we have the Petroleum Equalization Fund to bridge this gap?
When you do the regulations, they're out.
But now they are still there.
They're still there.
And you want them all out.
So that the market forces will all determine this. Because this is where the price will drop. Someone that is buying gasoline in New York is not the same thing as someone buying gasoline in Texas. Those that are closer to the refineries that are more in the down south in US, Texas, Atlanta, and co, you see them drive bigger truck because they buy a cheaper one as compared to someone that is in California.
Let's understand what you're saying a little further. Do you advocate that they just go ahead, maybe the same way this announcement was made, make the same announcements for full deregulation, and then what will the processes or the steps be? Because many are saying, look, this is a shock to us. No one talked about this previously. They didn't tell us what they intended to do. This just announced, and the whole country has got to adjust to it as quick as possible.
It is a case that you look at it from the economic aspect of it. When you make some economic policies and adjustments, you have to think about the palliative measures that you put in place to absorb it. And that was why when I started, I first tried to put on coming out from an acute scarcity. You should have created surplus in terms of supply, and then when you do it, such that it's just a very simple case. Let's say we consume a total of 40 million liters a day, and you have the capability of supplying 65 million a day, and you do it. Then you have created that palliative because the supply will be everywhere and the price will not go up. And then you also look at, you're just coming out from May 1st where laborers were demanding for an increase in wages from 18 to 50-something thousand naira, and that they are still making that demand. Argument is still going on whether the labor salary wages should be reviewed in 5 years or 10 years or go with the historical data. You've not addressed that issues, because once you address those issues, then if you do this, but those are separate governmental issues and policy issues. Bringing it.
Yeah, do you think we should have made this announcement then, having highlighted what you just said?
No, when you say
in terms
then,
of we haven't made those provisions for surplus, should we have announced this
now,
guided regulation now or wait for later?
No, if you want to do the regulation, do full deregulation. There's nothing like guided. No, it doesn't really work because people still take advantage of all these gaps. Let me
liberalization.
Yeah, let me give you an example. In the Kachiko statement, he mentioned that one of the benefits is people will no longer be able to take PMS to Chad, Niger, and co. But you're still bridging the transportation that takes it to Sokoto, where it will be easily moved. So you're still paying for that. So people can still do it. Because you're still bridging the cost of moving that PMS from here to. If the man taking it to Chad now realizes that right now, if I want it, I have to pay the cost inclusive of the transportation from Lagos, from Musumi, to get to Chad.
Were they not trying to say that the reason why they didn't want them moving it out of the country was because they could get more money for it? So if you could get that money here, despite that we're paying the bridging cost, would you still undertake that, the stress of taking it out?
It is now the price difference. Now, if you go to Chad, a liter of PMS goes about 185 naira. and we were selling at 90 something. And you're able to move the product from Lagos, from Port Harcourt to the nearest border. And your government, our taxpayers' fund, has paid for that movement.
That's the bridging.
That's the bridging.
So in all of
So
this,
you're increasing their margin.
in all of this, I think I see two issues here you've raised. First, you're talking about the timing, and you say this just might also mean more scarcity because we've not been able to bridge that surplus.
Continue.
So it will continue for a while. And you also think that two agencies perhaps should be out of business now, the PPPRA and the Petroleum Equalization Fund.
We save more money if we give everybody in PPPRAs and the Petroleum Equalization early retirement. We save more money and pay them off and re-engage them into another services.
If we're going for full deregulation.
Yes. The nation save much money. If we point these things and put it in a graph, we'll see the difference.
Because your logic here,
So why hold
your logic here, which looks fantastic, is about the bridging. Because if you truly bridge and you pay that excess, or I mean that amount, the differentials, that's the word I was looking for, and you get to the border and you take it outside the country, it looks still very much lucrative for the man who is in that kind of business. But if you don't get that money, definitely you put that, you bear the cost.
Remember in that template you're looking at, the distribution margin alone is 18.37 naira.
Yeah, I can see that.
18.37.
And looks like it's the highest in all of
That's
this.
the distribution margin.
Yes, sir.
What it takes to move it and all that from point A to point B and all that, with everybody involved. So if we really, when you do such a liberalization mechanism, this part goes off. Let the market and every indices affect it. But another point that we have to take note where we say we have to address it. If you ask my candid opinion, the government should come out with a program, say in the next 3 years or 5 years, we can stop exportations of crude in this nation. This was what United States did in 1973. They came up with such a policy, took it to the Congress, passed it as a law, and that led to the total development.
So we refine crude here.
Of the entire, and it was just last year that Obama was able to give a minor waive, and it has to go back to the Congress to get that waive, so that every crude produced in the country must be refined in the country. And once you come up with that as a policy, you put a timeline for implementation of it. In the next 3 years, we should be able to do up to 50%. In the next,
and you think that we'll see more refineries from the private sector?
more refineries will come up.